The way I like to think about emergence is through this equation that you see here, where 1 plus 1 doesn't actually equal 2, it equals 3. With emergence, we differentiate and include all of the parts. And what happens is when there's an alignment and a rhythm, something new emerges that couldn't have been there without these other important pieces. So our focus tonight is talking about emergence. And we're going to begin with the coming back to simplicity when it comes to our breath. So emergence, you can think again of 1 plus 1 equals 3. So the inhale and the exhale can be 1 and 1. And when those two opposites are in a rhythm, something emerges. We get life, we get aliveness. Changing the rhythm or the pace changes the nervous system state that we're in. Something new emerges. And what I would like to invite is, rather than moving into lots of different complex practices or every month needing to be adding something in, while that is a possibility and something you can play with, I think the way to really keep this simple is to come back to the knowledge of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a natural anti-inflammatory agent that we house in our nasal passages and that lines all of our blood vessels. And when we breathe slow, low and light, we are facilitating the buildup of nitric oxide in our nasal passages. And that slow, smooth breath is like allowing that nitric oxide time to move through our sinuses and down our trachea into our lungs to really support this sense of things opening and relaxing. So that's really, I think, something to come back to over and over again, is just remembering that the simple technique, the simple practice of 30 seconds to 3 minutes to however long you want to do it, where you're actually even visualizing nitric oxide. It might be helpful to even pause at the bottom of your exhale, knowing that nitric oxide is starting to build up in your nasal passages. And then when you take that next slow, spacious inhale, it's now expanding through your sinuses and into your lungs and supporting this sense of an open perspective, the ability to relax and feel calm and spacious. So that's the practice we're recommitting to, is just a few moments, a few minutes a day to breathe slow, low and light. Now we're going to begin exploring a little bit about the nervous system and how it's connected to our breath tonight. And one of the things that can be helpful is coming back to SIMS and DIMS. Danger signals, danger in my system, or safety signals, safety in my system. So when there are more danger signals than safety signals, adrenaline and cortisol surge, which is felt as agitation and tension. So right away, you can connect this back to nitric oxide, right? When there are more danger signals than safety signals, our breath tends to speed up. It moves more into the chest. So right away, we're actually eliminating the possibility of nitric oxide flowing through our body, and things start to tense and tighten up. As well as overbreathing or breathing quicker is also releasing way more carbon dioxide, which has a very similar effect in terms of things tightening up and losing the ability to absorb oxygen, right? So there's tension and agitation, and this sends the signal, do something throughout the body as a cascade of sensations, thoughts, and actions. And when we're overwhelmed and under-resourced, in the sense that we don't notice this cascade of changes, or we don't feel like we're able to regulate ourselves out of it right away, we're going to automatically react in fear, coupled with an impulse to find safety, to protect and defend. And this is happening in 5 ways. that move through somewhat like a ladder, as you see here on the right. So the first thing we do when there are more danger signals than safety signals is that we actually reach out for connection. We reach out to feel safe, to find support. And when that support is not there, or it's not that it can't be trusted, but maybe we learn that we don't actually feel safe when we reach out for support or connection. The next line of defense to find safety is, okay, I'm going to run away. I'm going to push away. I'm going to pull away. And if that doesn't work right away, then the next line of defense is, okay, I need to fight. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get aggressive. If that line of defense does not work, we shift into the next wise line of defense, which is fawn and appease, which is overriding these really uncomfortable feelings, bypassing ourselves and pretending like everything's okay. And if that does not get us back into a safety, then we move into the last line of defense, which is to shut down, to go numb, and dissociate. So what you see here on the far right is that at any point in this cycle, we can consciously take charge. There's lots of different ways we can do this. The way that I have put together is this BRITA acronym, and we're going to move through that together. So here on the left is a common loop that we follow moment after moment, right? You can start anywhere in this loop. One leads to the next, right? So say we start at sensation. You feel something in your body, something in your environment, something in your nervous system, picking up sensation. Well, that leads right into perception. It dictates how we see and what we see. And that leads right into an emotion, how we feel about it, the sense of arousal or valence, and the current demands in our system in the moment. Emotion leads to thought and story, right? Story follows state. So depending on how we feel and what we're perceiving, that's going to dictate what we're thinking about. That leads right into how we act and how we behave, which then feeds back into sensation. So this is happening very quickly. And what we want to practice is slowing this down, right? So you can see in between sensation and perception, we can bring in a mindful embodiment practice like BRITA to turn towards sensation, to interrupt this cycle, to pause and give ourselves some love and attention, to reappraise what we're feeling, to reframe it, and to recognize that we don't have to continue down this quick pattern of reaction. So BRITA is a guided interoceptive practice to cultivate space to breathe around sensations and emotions by generating a loving witness, to calm, validate, respond, and reappraise. So BRITA stands for breathe, recognize what you're feeling, right? Name it to tame it. I'm feeling angry. A part of me is feeling sadness, right? Recognize what you're experiencing. And then we take it a step further into, we'll include it, right? Open yourself to it and start to identify the raw sensations, right? So it's not just I'm angry or a part of me is angry. It's this anger feels like fire in my belly, or like tension in my shoulders pulling forward, or a backpack of rocks tied to my back, right? So we take time to really get clear on the granular detail of the sensations. The same way we have practiced before of using our eyes to look around the space and to not just glaze over, but actually to notice detail about objects that maybe you've had in front of you for years, but to really pause and notice detail. This is really helpful for regulating your nervous system. So from there, after you've identified and included what you're feeling and noticing, you then track it. You stay with it. You notice how, as you continue breathing and holding space, how it naturally moves or shapeshifts or transforms. And these are huge steps here, because so often we feel something and we get right into what it means. We fall into the story or reaction or projection into our external environment. And what we're doing here is we're diving deep into below the level of water for the iceberg, right? We're moving down to meet sensation and actually get curious about it. And it starts to change, it starts to evolve, it starts to transform when we stay with it and breathe with it. And lastly, A stands for address it. So after you've moved through more of these right hemisphere modes of processing, right, which is more of the creativity, the mental abstraction, the being with, the feeling, the allowing of the formlessness and the boundlessness of your experience, right? Just tracking your experience, this pure being. And then we move into address it, which is including now more of the left hemisphere of your brain. We're bringing in some cognition, but because we've taken some time to really slow down and downregulate, as we invite cognition back in, it's coming back in from a place of regulation, of feeling calm and connected. So the story, the support, the thoughts, the words that are going to arise from the left hemisphere cognition, the language processing, is actually going to be much more compassionate. So we want to address it with self-compassion. We want to, I think it's on. Yeah, we want to address it with assessing our basic needs. Like, am I hungry? Am I angry, lonely, or tired? Right? Is there something missing that I could actually just offer myself right here? Moving through the self-compassion steps from our previous time together, as well as bilateral stimulation. So Nadi Shodhana would be a bilateral stimulation, or simply rocking side to side. Or more in the mental realm, you could hold opposites. If you notice that you're feeling really angry, yet you're also feeling really guilty, right? To be able to toggle back and forth to hold space for both. So any kind of oscillation, even back to your breath. So conscious breath for self-regulation, coming back to a rhythmic, slow moving breath. These are all ways that you can now consciously and cognitively address it. So this is actually a great practice for bilateral integration of both hemispheres of your brain. So this is very much connected and aligned to that other image of the different ways that we seek safety. And this now is just another way of seeing that, another map, yet it's still the same thing. So the evolution of your nervous system is a really interesting way to understand it. And the first part of the nervous system that evolved is the dorsal vagal. So 500 million years ago, when animals with a nervous system felt more danger signals than safety signals, their one line of defense was shut down, immobilize with fear, collapse, disappear, right? So as humans with more complex brains, potentially, we experience this state along with stories of despair, feeling lost and alone, feeling hopeless, right? You can imagine that animals 500 million years ago would move into this state of shutdown, and as soon as the danger was no longer there, they would come back online. And ideally, that's what we want as well, a flexible nervous system that as soon as there's a rupture in safety, once safety is found, repair happens and we come right back into our flexibility. Now, for many people, we get stuck. We get stuck in these different states, and it takes on a much different experience. When we're in this state, we tend to breathe really shallow. with the occasional unconscious apnea, just occasionally holding our breath, not even noticing, as well as the occasional aborting of the exhale. So rather than getting a satisfying breath, there will just be moments where the breath stops. So this is a survival state and is much different than how we access dorsal vagal when we are in our thriving state. Okay, so it's an important thing to keep in mind with the nervous system is that when we are in a place of survival, more danger signals than safety signals, we move into tunnel vision and there's just one mode happening, right? So once we're in this point, it's just 100% of focus is on this feeling of fogginess, dissociation, being untethered and floating. Now, what happened a few million years later? There we go. So 400 million years ago, now instead of just having this shutdown response, there was the sympathetic nervous system that came online. And the sympathetic nervous system now made it so that when there are more danger signals than safety signals, the only option is not shut down. Now we can move into run away, fight, right? Get mobilized. So there's still a cascade of fear, but now we can be mobilized instead of immobilized. And again, for us complex humans, this comes along with narrowed vision, narrowed thoughts, hypervigilance, breathing really fast and tense, which leads to, again, the expelling of more carbon dioxide than what is healthy. And this leads to unfriendly hemoglobin, which basically means the red blood cells become really sticky and they hold on to the oxygen in your body. So even though you could have lots of oxygen in your body, if you have really low carbon dioxide, your body's not going to absorb the oxygen. So again, this is different than when we are in a thriving state and have the ability to stay and play, to be mobilized in co-regulation. So we have the sympathetic nervous system as a survival state, and then we have it as a thriving state. So what is the thriving state? 200 million years ago, we developed the emergence of ventral vagal. So no longer is it just 1 and 2, we now have 3. So this is the state that when there are more danger signals than safety signals, the first line of defense is reach out, right? Find somebody that you can connect with. Find safety in partnership, in collaboration, in community. And it's only when that is no longer safe that we move down the ladder towards, okay, well, now I need to fight, or I need to run, or I'm just going to shut down, right? And again, these are unconscious. These are reactions that happen. So when we are in the ventral vagal, we now have the ability of using both sympathetic and dorsal in the sense that we can be mobilized and excited, stay and play, and we can also be immobilized, cuddling, in awe, meditating, while still feeling very connected and open, calm, curious, confident, right? So generally speaking, this is the state when we are perceiving more safety signals than danger signals. All right, so I'm going to move you through a little experience here. And what we're going to do is start by creating a visual, an embodied experience of your version of ventral vagal in this moment. And from there, we're going to dip our toes into the other 2 states momentarily with the intention of getting to know what that's like for you in this moment, as well as potentially landing on a new name for each of these states, to kind of give them a name that actually feels relevant, relatable to you. Because I know that not everyone lands well with ventral vagal or dorsal. And as you learn more in coming modules around the vagus nerve and how that's connected to everything that will start to make more sense. But for the time being, it's really helpful to just have names that you can land on really quickly that feel, again, relevant for you. So what I'll invite you to do is settle into a position of comfort, whatever that looks like for you. If you want to lay down or stay seated, lean against the wall. To just take a few moments to settle into what feels like a supportive, comfortable position. And as you begin to tune into your breath, recalling the beauty and bounty of nitric oxide and the importance of carbon dioxide, so that as you breathe slow, low and light, you're facilitating levels of these chemicals that support your body in feeling relaxed and open, feeling a flexible, mobile diaphragm. As you inhale, it glides down, and you feel that 3D expansion in your pelvis, low back, belly, and sides. Where 70% of your inhale is felt in your lower torso and pelvis, 20% in the lateral expansion of your ribs, and 10% in the front, sides, and back of your heart. And as you breathe in that way, I invite you to begin visualizing a scene in your mind's eye, whether from memory recall or imagination or a mix of the two, of a time and place where you feel connected, welcomed, calm, surrounded by nature, laughter. So notice how that appears for you in this moment. Noticing the sounds, the smells, the sensations. Perhaps you're near a body of water, reflecting sunlight of a sunrise or midday or sunset. Maybe there's a rainbow, greenery in all directions. Just allow that scene to appear. As you take a moment in this scene to notice how you're breathing. Consciously breathe. Breathing slow, low and light. Supporting your heart. Giving your heart an opportunity to slowly increase its heart rate as you inhale and decrease as you exhale, which further calms and smooths out your brain waves and releases even more nitric oxide and oxytocin from your heart. Recognize how you're feeling in this moment. Include it all as you identify the granular sensations that are like the building blocks of the more surface level emotions we often express or speak to. And then track these sensations. Notice how they change with each breath, how they move or don't move. How they travel or grow or disappear as something new emerges. And when we are feeling this sense of immense safety, when it comes to addressing it in this BRITA acronym, I invite you to savor what you're feeling. Address it by relishing and savoring this moment and each breath. Recalling that story follows state. The way we perceive the world, the way we think, the way we act is colored by our nervous system state. So make a mental note here of how you would finish these sentences when you are in this scene of safety. I am blank. And the world is blank. And then take a moment after using your cognition, language processing of the left hemisphere of your brain, to shift back over to the right hemisphere by infusing those words, those statements into your breath. And breathe in the way that communicates what you just expressed. Now, as we consciously begin to shift, we're going to engage in 10 Kapalabhati breaths and then 10 conscious connected breaths. Purposefully, a little bit of an effortful and potentially disorganized way to breathe. Yet we're consciously choosing it, which is a much different experience than when something is happening to us. As we engage in these 20 breaths, I'll invite you to move through BRITA, noticing your breath, recognizing your emotions or state and how it's changing, identifying and including sensations as they move and arise, tracking them as they move through your body. And then we're going to address it together in a breath hold after our 20 breaths. So Kapalabhati is the effortful exhale, and then letting go, softening the surrender to allow the inhale to happen. Conscious connected breath is the opposite, an effortful inhale, and then a complete surrender and letting go as the exhale simply happens. Engaging in 10 Kapalabhati, 10 conscious connected breaths. When you're ready, you can begin. As soon as you're done 10 Kapalabhati, switch to 10 conscious connected breaths. Keep going. Notice what's shifting. Be with sensations. Track them as they move. After 10 conscious connected breaths, at the bottom of your exhale, hold. Addressing this change by pausing in the stillness to give your body space to recalibrate. Just recognizing what was shifting in your scene and your visual as your breath was picking up like that. Potentially a tightening, a narrowing, change in weather, a story beginning to shift. And when you feel ready to breathe, breathe in slowly, a slow, spacious inhale, a pause at the top with full lungs, and then a long exhale, perhaps a second or two longer than your inhale. Breathing in that rhythm for a few rounds. So if the inhale is 4 or 5 seconds, you're going to pause for around 2 seconds. And your exhale would be 5, 6, or 7 seconds. And as you breathe in that way, just do a little recall of how you would change those sentences in that short experience, that more activating state. I am, and the world is. Seeing what comes up for you. And after a couple more rounds of that slow inhale, gentle pause at the top, and even longer exhale, shift back into what feels like a balanced breath. And on your next exhale, I invite you to allow a sigh to move through your body, like a sigh of relief. Like after that little journey of conscious activation, that sigh of relief is like, oh, I'm back. These momentary bouts of conscious activation can be really helpful in building our resilience, reshaping our nervous system to recognize that it's okay to move away from home, to mobilize, to get activated, because I always know how to find my way back. So we're going to do something similar as what we just did. Kapalabhati for 10 breaths, conscious connected breath 10 times, again into a breath hold. But this time we're going to imagine that as the weather changes with these consciously quicker free breath practices, perhaps a storm starts to come in, or a tornado, or the weather just gets darker, that when we move into the breath hold, we're just going to visualize that this is actually moving into that dorsal shutdown. Again, keeping one foot in ventral the whole time. We're consciously choosing to explore, just to notice how the scene changes, noticing what you feel in your body. Right, so it'll be in that breath hold that we'll practice Britta, to just take a moment to notice, what is it like to be in this place of disconnection? And then we're going to come back to our breath to fully climb back up the ladder, to land back in ventral. So when you feel ready, you can begin again with 10 Kapalabhati breaths. Once you've done 10, shift to 10 conscious connected breaths. Effortful inhale. Keep going as you visualize how your scene is changing. After 10 breaths, pause and hold. And perhaps there is fog that moves over your scene. As you invite in this recognition of feeling untethered. Identifying and including whatever you're noticing, turning towards it as you track it. And in this place of disconnection or lack of sensations, just take a moment to note how you would finish those sentences of I am and the world is. And then we're going to address it by shifting our breath into a box breath, whenever you're ready to breathe or if you're already breathing. Coming into that place of a slow, spacious inhale, a pause for a few or several seconds, a slow, spacious exhale, and a pause in emptiness. Doing that 6 rounds, consciously being with each breath, each part of the breath. As if you are gathering everything that's scattered, was disorganized, and you're bringing it back into this rhythm, this structure. In this way, box breath is a bit more of a left hemisphere mode of processing. It's very structured, it's very linear. It's 4 parts. If you're noticing your inhale feels strained or not very full, use your hands on your ribs or belly, supporting with a tuned touch to slow your inhale down and invite it to be deep into your pelvis, low belly, and low back. After 1 more round of box breath, we're going to do 1 double pump inhale into a hold and then a sigh of relief. Holding full, relaxing in the fullness, feeling the mobilization of full lungs, and as if you are stepping right back into your ventral vagal scene, a sigh of relief. And then bring 1 hand to your heart and 1 hand to an earlobe, feeling your hands where they land, breathing slow, low, and light. And find a rhythm where you're gently caressing your earlobe. Maybe a little gentle tug or pull or squeeze. Just taking a moment to feel your attuned touch. And then allow the hand that's on your ear to then come to your face, landing on your cheek. Feeling this heart-to-face connection of your vagus nerve and the cranial nerves that innervate your face to help with social connection. Feel your ability to be your own primary caretaker, this connection to self. And allowing your eyes to move around the space that you're in, and a smile on your face as you move your eyes, your cheeks. Feeling yourself fully back. And then take a moment to pause when you're ready. To first of all, savor this moment. savor this connection to self, to breath. And once again, land on your sentences of, in this state, I am, and the world is. And then shift back to the right hemisphere processing as you infuse those words, that story, into your breath. And breathe in a way that communicates what you just expressed. Now I'll leave this briefly on the screen when you want to take a look to see the complex innervation of, these are several of your cranial nerves that are a part of your social engagement system. This part of your nervous system that when online, you have access to self-compassion and care. So the long yellow nerve is the vagus nerve reaching down to the heart, the ventral vagus. These other cranial nerves are what allow you to seek safety, to move your eyes, to express safety, to hear, to speak, to express with your face. So gently caressing your earlobe or touching the backs of your ears when done consciously and softly is a way of getting really close to where part of these cranial nerves touch, communicating safety and calm into your system. Lastly, I invite you to take a moment, whether you put pen to paper or sit with this, to land on what you would name each of these states, as well as capturing your sentences of I am and the world is. So on the right-hand side of the screen, the example using a form of weather could be, instead of ventral vagal, you call it the sunny place. And instead of the survival state of our sympathetic, you could call it the tornado. And the dorsal shutdown of our survival state could be foggy brain or fog. So however those visuals were appearing for you, you can give it a name with the invitation that as we naturally move through these states throughout the day, this gives you an opportunity to notice it in a different way, to be able to turn towards it, to even acknowledge and appreciate your nervous system for trying to protect you. And then remember that you are supported and resourced. And you can make your way back to your sunny place with visualization, with breath, with patience, with oscillations, with Brita. Be quite jarring and dysregulating to move through our nervous system states like that, especially touching into sympathetic and dorsal. It can be a lot. And one of the first things we can do is once again just settle into a position that feels comfortable, whatever that looks like for you. Now I would invite you to put your hands on your belly or wrap around your low ribs, right? A little bit of resistance to our breathing, plus the tangibility of feeling our hands can be quite downregulating. So that as you inhale, you're inviting your breath to be slow and felt low and light. Every exhale, you relax, you let go, feel yourself get grounded. Every inhale, we open, receive. Then allow your eyes to open. And as you stay connected to your breath, right, we can pay attention to two things at once. Just generally one thing will be in the foreground and one will be in the background. So as if you could move your breath to the background, still paying attention to it, and bring your sense of sight to the foreground. As you look around your space, noticing detail. Noticing colors and shadows and shapes. Continue feeling your breath, feeling the pressure of your hands to invite it to continue to be slow, low and deep. Maybe even a little gentle twist and look behind. Notice what's behind you. What's down low? What's up high? And in the next few moments, allow your eyes to land on one object or color or shape that for whatever reason in this moment, it's just warm and welcoming when your eyes land there. Perhaps it's a texture or a color that looks soft, smooth, soothing, or an object that reminds you of something joyful. And then again, your breath being the message and the messenger. Notice what it's like as you gaze at that object or color to breathe it into your body. To breathe in a way that matches, that aligns, coheres with what you're gazing at. And if it feels okay, as you're gazing at this object or color, allow really gentle movement through your spine and shoulders. And allow that movement to also be aligned with your breath. Like an opening or reaching or expanding as you inhale. A folding in, a softening, a grounding as you exhale. So that the movement of our eyes, the movement of our body, and the movement of our breath are braiding together. And it might also feel good for anyone who felt a lot of the sympathetic charge to just wiggle a little bit, acknowledging that there was some mobilization that came into your system, and now like, thank you, and you can release now. And then if it feels okay for you, you could also bring one hand to your heart, one hand to your cheek. And take a moment to look at the screen and look at these other faces, these other humans that are here having this experience with you. Breathing and feeling and learning. What a gift. When that feels complete for now, you can lower your hands and just check in. Notice what feels different, what feels the same. This also really brings in the importance of recognizing that not only our current nervous system state, but the patterns we've been going through for the last long while are going to deeply influence the way we experience practices, right? So for one person, conscious connected breathing is invigorating. And then for another person, it's too much within 2 breaths, shooting right into activation and into frozen. So if you want to start playing with techniques that start bringing in some flexibility into your nervous system, well, Kapalabhati is still a very invigorating breath technique. And if your experience of it is that this actually feels good, I can work with this, that's the practice, right? And if you start feeling more regulated on a more regular basis, then maybe you invite in conscious connected breath where it's like, I'm going to do 5 of these, and then I'm going to hold my breath, and I'm going to be with myself, move through Britta, create safety. So that it's just like that elastic band is just being stretched a little bit, and then you're coming right back into, okay, I'm good, I'm safe. And eventually when we do that, titrating within our window of tolerance, we get to the point where we can really move flexibly, right? Experience anything, no matter how mobilizing it is, because we come right back home to safety. But when we're off balance, the window of tolerance is smaller, and our practices need to be much, much more generous in terms of being kind and spacious to what we're noticing. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here. And if you have any questions or follow-up that comes up later on, know that I'm here for you, and I love hearing from you. And thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Great night.
Thank you.